What is DBA insurance? Well, I can tell you this. It's not difficult and it's not hard. In fact, it's quite simple. DBA insurance is a different type of insurance coverage that many brokers and agents may not be aware of. But here's what it is. It's workers' compensation for workers that are engaged in U.S. government contracts outside the continental United States. In other words, any overseas operations. And it doesn't have to just be on a military installation. It can be any operation that's being paid for by the U.S. government. And it protects U.S. nationals, third country nationals, and even locals. So if you've got local people working on the contract, it protects them as well. Now the protections that it affords has to do with the injuries that may be sustained or a payment of benefits to dependents in the event someone is killed during the operation. DBA is required by primes, subcontractors, and any subordinate contractors that may be engaged on the contract. Now, this is certainly not a new type of coverage. In fact, the Defense Base Act, this is what it is, was actually put together by Congress in 1941, and it's administered by the U.S. Department of Labor under the Longshore Harbor Workers' Compensation Act. So for more information and all kinds of questions, you can actually look into this from the U.S. Department of Labor website at dol.gov. I get asked this quite a bit. Is it a reimbursable cost or expense? Well, that depends on what your contract actually stipulates. Some contracts say it is reimbursable. Other contracts does not allow it to be reimbursable, but it depends on the wording. Now, coverage for DBA insurance is on an annual basis. So even if you have a short-term period in which you're going to be engaged in the contract, you still have to have the insurance, but it's done on an annual or 365-day period. Now, premiums are put together and determined by the underwriter once they take a look at the application, and we're going to get into that in a second. Now, the reason I bring that up is because even though the U.S. Department of Labor is involved in DBA, they have nothing to do with the rates. Another thing is that not all insurance companies write Defense Base Act insurance. In fact, many of them don't. So finding the right broker that understands this, they know what markets to go to, can save you a lot of time, money, and resources. Another thing is that it's not considered 24-hour coverage. And I've heard that before where they're like, well, we've got DBA, we don't need any other type of insurance in order to support that effort. And that's not contractually required. That's true, but DBA is not 24-hour coverage. In fact, there are situations where if they go on leave or they take a brief moment away from the campus or where they're operating, that DBA may not cover them. So you need to be aware of that. Another thing is that you can actually apply for a waiver for Defense Base Act insurance, and that waiver would be applied for through the Department of Labor. This video, however, will not get into that content because it's just too lengthy of a process. Now, if you're a USAID contractor, then your DBA policy is going to be administered through that agency. It's not going to be done with the open market like we're talking about right here. So one of the things to consider is, well, how difficult is it to get DBA insurance? Well, it's not difficult at all. In fact, it's a simple application process, but there are keys to the application that need to be considered in order for you to get the best rates and to have the quotes turned around in the most expeditious timeline possible. Now, what that means is we need this. We need to know the contract or solicitation number, the legal name of your company, the number of employees, that being the third country nationals, the U.S. nationals, and the locals, the associated payroll for each of those categories, the country of operation, and finally, what the operations actually consist of. Because in DBA, it's not necessarily hard for them to process it to get the quote out, but they got to know what you're doing. And the more vague someone is with their operational descriptions, the more latitude the underwriters are going to have with not really understanding what you're doing, and it could jeopardize not getting a lower rate. So I highly recommend that you are very clear when it comes to your operational description. Now to conclude, Defense Base Act insurance is easy and it's easy to obtain, but you need to have the right team working with you or your team in order to expedite that process. If you're interested in learning more and you would like a professional that handles Defense Base Act insurance exclusively, you can contact me direct. My name is Brian Smith, and I'm with the Insurance Office of America. Thanks for watching this video.